Welcome to Space Cadet Sports. This is Paul Salazar Jr. Happy opening day to those who celebrate, or technically, happy belated opening day. Very happy to start doing a podcast here. Um, Last year, when I started the Substack, I definitely was thinking about doing some kind of video or audio aspect to it. And when it started this podcast feature, I was like, why not? Let's give it a shot. And I told myself that with the new season, I would give it a shot. And I wasn't quite ready. I was planning to do it. A lot of things got in the way, and I wasn't quite ready. And then, of course, the game was such a bummer for the Houston Astros. So this is Space Cadet Sports is a Astros fan hub for sure. Hub is giving it a lot of credit, but it is a Houston Astros fan page for sure. And 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 yeah, it was a tough game, a tough opening day for us. But might as well just jump right into it. The Houston Astros played the New York Yankees at home at Minute Maid Park. Um, and yeah, it looked like a fun day. Uncle Mike was there. Michael Bradley was there. Dr. Smooth for to some of you. He was there for the first pitch, and he in the broadcast he did mention that he was a little bit nervous, which I thought was interesting. But I mean, yeah, it's got to be really emotional to be there. I just thought. Not that I wouldn't be a little nervous, because I'm not necessarily a nervous person. I do a lot of really silly things, but I think I'd be highly nervous to throw a ceremonial first pitch, just because of all the things that could go wrong and how silly you could look. I have a decent arm. I don't, I, but because I have that confidence, I guess is why I'm not confident. I'm too confident, so that gives me no confidence. But before we diagnose me, let's get back to Uncle Mike here. He was in the booth for a little bit of the game, and and I thought it was very adorable when they asked him what did he miss the most. He said, "My guys." And I was like, "Oh man, like he's definitely a family-oriented guy. The reason he wanted to retire is, he wanted to be with his family more. He's coaching his kids' little league team, but." When it comes to what he misses about the game, he missed the people, and that's just. I thought that was just a nice response and a sweet response. And in a world where uh, we always amplify the hate in an industry, like sports media is always about anger and hatred and riling people up. I was just like, yeah, that's actually a pretty sweet moment, and that's what I wanted to lead the podcast off with, was sweetness. Um, so yeah, I guess if that's not your bag, you're already tuning out. But no, I mean, we will get to some anger. Don't worry. But no, I just thought that was very sweet. And I do think, it's nice in this day and age to admit, like we have relationships and camaraderies that we desperately love, and we do miss when we move on from them. Like for me, something I remember is like pre 2020, before the pandemic. There was a bar I worked at where the bar team was pretty tight knit, and that was just, now it's just like a nostalgia, like, oh yeah, I remember that team, I remember that squad, you know. So yeah, it's okay to think back on things fondly, or where Uncle Mike is. He's kind of missing it now. He wishes he was there, but he's got a job in the booth. Uncle Mike is also coaching his family. He'll be there for his family. He'll be okay. Uh, but on to the game. I'm dragging my feet because I don't want to get to that. But on to the game. Um, as most Astros fans know, JV Justin Verlander is injured. He's started the season on the IL, so that means that our second ace, if you will, Framber Valdez, got the start for opening day, and Framber has been a real up and down guy for most of his career. He put together an amazing season for the history books. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. This is I meant to make more notes. One thing I do know baseball, but when it comes to like knowing specific years and stuff, I tend to get a little foggy. But yeah, I believe that was 2022 when he had his amazing quality start season. It wasn't too long ago at this point, but Fromber put together a really solid season, but for most of his career he's been a little up and down. Um, and he definitely had a really up and down start today. And there's been a lot of speculations. There's been a lot of speculations. I believe it's speculation. There's been a lot of speculation as to what Fromber we're going to get this season, if he's kind of locked in, if you will. And a lot of our season depends on um, how deep he can go into games and how quality of a second starter, a first or second ace, he'll be. And today he definitely struggled. He didn't seem like he was it seemed like it was the first game of the season for him, for sure. He started off pretty strong, I would say. He was kind of nipping the edges of the strike zone a bit. He wasn't getting a lot of calls. I mean, oof. Speaking of not being ready, or not kind of having some jitters or not performing on opening day, those umps, that strike zone was all over the place. But I'm sure Yankees fans are saying that too. It wasn't like he was calling it one way or the other. That strike zone was just all over the place for everybody, and there was just a lot of bad calls and just a lot of bad calls on both sides. But that umpire it's tough. I think with all the movement Fromber had on the ball, with just the really kind of chaotic strike zone, the ump wasn't really being consistent. Fromber struggled on the edges, and he started walking people. And I think whether it's Fromber missing the frame, the pitch, the framing by Diaz, or just the really inconsistent calls, or just all of the above. Fromber just started walking people a lot more. Uh, than Astros fans wanted, and I'm sure Fromber wanted, and the organization wanted, I'm sure. So that became tricky. He got 3 double plays to get out of innings, though, and that was absolutely fantastic. Fromber is a ground ball pitcher. That's what he's known for. It's what he does. The infield has to be ready when he's pitching. I'm sure they were today. They got those double plays, or yesterday, I should say. At this point, they got those double plays. But it was the one meme I made and shared was the Matthew McConaughey meme of him smoking a cigarette, looking at his phone, because that's how I felt. Like Fromber just kept loading up the bases and walking people, and then getting out with double plays. It was a very stressful game for me, that's for sure. I'm sure it was very stressful for Fromber. I do wonder. I mean, I know not a lot of people listen to this. This is going to be a first episode. This is the pilot, if you will, of Space Cadet Sports. But sometimes I wonder if like a baseball player would listen to a podcast. You're like, oh yeah, it was very nervous for me. It's very nerve wracking. It's like, man, I was up there. I was on the mound. What are you talking about? But anyway, that being said, it's all relative. My feelings are valid, but man, must have been a tough day for Fromber up there. Definitely inconsistent. His stuff looked a little tough and inconsistent around the edges. Not getting consistent calls from the umpire doesn't help. But it looked like he kind of had a tough day out there, and we're waiting to see which Fromber we're gonna get. I'm very hopeful. This guy is a workhorse. This guy works hard. He has been prone to some mental challenges in the past, but I mean, who hasn't, you know? But he also has worked through them. He works with a sports psychologist. So I feel like there is still time for Fromber. I know a lot of people are already hitting the panic button. Um, sometimes it takes some people to get into the groove. So let's just hope. Let's be hopeful for Fromber here, because there was a lot of good stuff, and he did get those ground balls, and he just didn't have what it took to finish the game out, and I know he's very disappointed. Um, but yeah, just moving on. Let's just go to the next pitcher. Let's just do it that way. The next pitcher that rookie manager Joe Espada brought in was the Magic Man. Seth Martinez. So Seth Martinez, uh, he's definitely he's been a middle relief arm um, for a couple seasons here for Houston, kind of going back up and down in the minor leagues. And he actually is known for the kind of jokingly the Magic Man nickname. There is that he kind of is known to get out of situations with runners on base. I don't have the stat on me, but I know that he last season uh, got outs with a lot of runners on base. He has a lot of inherited runners and tends to do well in that pressure and in that situation. But this was a tough one, like coming into the game in the fifth inning on opening day is definitely not ideal for Espada or for Martinez. Um, Martinez, he did give up a walk and a run. I mean, he gave up a walk and a run, but somehow he kind of got out of a sticky situation. Um, I don't know. He kind of is magic. I have watched him a couple times, and he definitely seems to have decent stuff and gets out of situations. So I'm just hoping that they keep developing him and he just keeps doing well because we're gonna need middle relief arms this season. So if Seth Martinez can still work that magic, I'd be very happy because we need middle relief. We need someone to step in like to that Phil Maton like role. Where last couple seasons, Phil Maton wasn't really a big name in the Astros bullpen, but he came in some situations that were a little sticky early in games as opposed to later in games, and you need a guy that kind of comes in and just nails. And we made fun of Phil Maton for kind of being like Dexter, kind of having that serial killer look, but we need a guy to just go in there and kind of just not react to giving up a walk and just keep pitching and get out of the inning, which he did. So definitely not ideal. Um, I would not have wanted Seth Martinez to come into the first game that early for sure, but he got out of that situation. And then in the next inning, we got Montero. Montero in the sixth. Um, and I'm really, really rooting for Montero. Rafael Montero had a good year, got a big payday from Jim Crane, and had a rough season last season, and he's definitely been the target for a lot of Astros fans' ire. I think that's just how it goes. You sign a big contract, people are going to be looking at you and criticizing you more. Montero, we're all hoping for a bounce back year, but it was not the best start for Montero. He gave up a home run. And kind of in a way we're waiting to see what kind of in the way that we are for Fromber, we're waiting to see what Montero we're going to get here. And just like I was saying with Seth Martinez, middle relief is where this bullpen needs to be cleared up a bit right now. Obviously, with Abreu, Presley, and Hader, we have a pretty solid looking back end as long as they can perform up to their past par, like we're not too worried about that. We'll see. We still need them to perform, but we don't need to worry too much. The middle relief is kind of where the question marks are in the Astros bullpen. But it would not be a question mark if Montero would kind of figure some stuff out and kind of polish his pitches a little better and hit his spots. It's I know he's trying. I know he's working on it. It's not like these people don't try or just shrug when they get paid. You know, uh, it's I'm not trying to say that. I think a lot of podcasters kind of do that kind of thing of like, they got paid and then they're not performing as if that's the reason they just got lazy. I don't think a lot of professional athletes are like that. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some, I'm not naive, but I think it's a really weird take, and I think it's more of like a mirror. Like if this person got paid a lot of money that they would phone their podcast in or something, like I don't think if I got paid a lot of money I would want to do a better job. I don't know. I don't know why these people would think some people aren't trying. So I know Rafael Montero is trying, but I'm really rooting for him this season. It would be really nice and really would take away a big question mark for the middle relief if Rafael Montero kind of returned to the form he was in our championship season in 2022. And then with the big bats up, Joe Espada decided to be Shirley Temple, because and that by that I mean he decided to be cute. Uh, I don't. Oof. Yeah, I don't know where. Uh, for those of you who don't know me, I am an improviser. I do have some comedy some podcasts. I do have some comedy past, but my God, sometimes you start a joke and you don't know where it's going. That was no, that was like a D for diploma. I'm not going to beat myself up too much. But Joe Espada, definitely, I'm not going to give him a grade right now. But he was getting cute there. He brought Presley in the in the seventh, I believe. There, yeah, like so he brought him in against the big bats, which I get, I totally get. And with Presley not closing, and with the Abreu not available, you're kind of thinking, at least I'm assuming what a spot is thinking is just the best part of their lineup with the best arm towards the end of the game. You gotta keep it close. You can't let it go too crazy. There aren't too many options there in the middle relief. So we brought in Presley here as a middle relief arm, and he gave up 2 hits and a run. Oof, it definitely wasn't. Once again, the story, the story of the Astros pitching today is not what we hoped for, not what we were hoping for out of the gate. So, I definitely understand the decision, and I understand the people that are going to be a little critical of this. But also, people were very critical of Dusty Baker for never really trying anything, too out of the box. He was very old school. And here comes the new school guy, and the new school guy does something interesting. And now it's I guess it's just kind of ironic or funny to see the same people that were criticizing Dusty now criticizing Espada. I think some people just like to be critics. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge supporter of the Astros. This is me, but also I am being a little critical on the podcast. That is part of it. But I think some people just they just always like to be negative. So I try not to be too negative on the podcast. But yeah, you'll see. Sometimes you get angry. Sometimes you do want answers, or you are critical. But I just don't think this early on we need to be critical of Espada being cute. But also, I do think it's fine to be like, hey, buddy, I see you being cute out there. I think Presley will be fine. I don't think this is a need to worry situation here either. He's a professional. I don't think he's like mad about it or anything like that. I think also kind of like Espada, he was trying to get a little cute. He gave up like he was giving up hits on, and I think he was just doing too many breaking balls. But when he was getting the fastball in there, he was working that pretty well. Um, and yeah, then we got Taylor Scott. He came in. Taylor Scott, congratulations! He made his first opening day roster. He is South African, I believe. He's there's been articles about him. He's the first South African pitcher, I believe, in the major leagues. He got one walk and one strikeout. Yeah, and he looked perfectly fine. I'm hoping that he could elevate beyond his status as just a guy right now. It would be nice to have some consistent middle relief, and they're definitely giving him a little tryout here. But it's tough on opening day for me to see Taylor Scott and and Seth Martinez and Montero in these situations, um, because while we do want to see what they have, you definitely want to win the game. And just there were some nervous situations, and I do think it's interesting, that Presley ends up getting the loss here. The more of the guy that we know what he is, and we put him in the best spot we could, but he still picks up the L. So I'm not trying to be too critical of those guys because they did pretty well. But we are looking for Seth Martinez or Montero or Taylor Scott here to kind of elevate to that middle relief, solid arm, and then to kind of get away from the question marks, we can get to Josh Hader. Josh Hader came in and gave up 3 strikeouts, and he lives up to his billing. He lived up to the contract they gave him, so that was really nice. I'm really expecting a good season out of Hader. We're gonna need it from him. But yeah, that was really good to see. Um, and yeah, like I think we'll just really quickly here, we'll move on to the offense. I think the offense. It's funny that we're going into this game. We lost 5-4, and I'm like, oof, the offense. But it did feel that way, even though we scored 4. We definitely couldn't bring it back and win. But the offense did start off strong, and then it kind of petered towards the end. And I think this is just a time I'd like to remind Houston Astros fans or new fans or people that just don't pay that much attention that the Astros have notoriously slow starts. Obviously, this is not what we are hoping for. That's the tagline of the show. But they were knocking off the rust uh, today or during the game for sure. Altuve was 1 for 5. You know, got 2 strikeouts. Uh, let's see. I think Jordan was 2 for 5 with 1 run. But he looked good. Jordan's gonna Jordan. That guy. I mean, I'm hoping he has a solid season and he could potentially even play a little bit more left field. I know some people are scared of it, but I'd love to see him out there. I'd love to see him get MVP caliber season. Um, but he's batting second, and that looks like it's going to be a great idea. I know some people are a little worried about that, but I mean, if the numbers are saying let's give it a shot, let's give it a shot. Let's try it out. Uh, Tucker then came in. He got 2 strikeouts as well, but he got a walk. He was 1 for 4. We're hoping that's this isn't these aren't bad stat lines. Breggy was 1 for 5. That isn't looking good, but Breggy is definitely one of the slower starters on the Astros. Abreu, who had a really slow start last season, was 0 for 3. He had a walk and a strikeout. And then, hilariously, in the game, most of the production came from the bottom of the lineup. We had Chas McCormick, who got 2 RBIs for us. He was 1 for 4. Uh, Yainer Diaz was 3 for 4 with an RBI. Everybody was complaining about Yainer not getting enough at bats last season, and Yainer's looking like he's ready for it. We definitely at some point, we're looking at the pitching. You might want to talk about his play calling or his pitch calling and stuff, but I don't know. It's way too early to put that fault on him either. So I'm not trying to have too reactionary of a take here. I'm not trying to call up Chicago and see if Maldonado's available, but just it was a tough game. I'm sure Fromber missed Maldi there emotionally. I'm not trying to say any other kind of way right now. Uh, and Jeremy Pena was he was 2 for 4. That was good to see. He had a nice double. And then, oh my gosh, Jake the Rake Myers was 1 for 2. He had a home run and he struck out once in this game. But he was named the Astros starting center fielder. They're hoping to boost his confidence, and it looks like confidence boosted. I'm really hoping that Jake the Rake, has a great offensive season because he definitely is a good defensive player. Um, it really would be nice to see more solid play out of him. Uh, but then they pinched hit, Espada getting cute again. He pinched hit Myers for Singleton for Myers. Sorry, Singleton grounded out. And Singleton is definitely going to be a polarizing player on the Astros roster in the beginning of the season. A lot of people are very critical of John Singleton, and I really think they want a left-handed bat. They want a veteran bat. They want someone who kind of has good vision. They want someone who's able to play first. Um, John Singleton checks all those boxes. A lot of people are critical because they want someone that has a more consistent bat than John Singleton. But when you look at the other options, you have Corey Julks and Joey Loperfido, right? Corey Julks, I love Corey Julks, but he's doesn't quite have the vision of John Singleton, which, I'm not trying to say crown John Singleton as having the best vision of all time. He's almost there. I feel like his vision was getting a whole lot better towards the end of the season. But the biggest thing against Julks is he doesn't play first and he doesn't bat left-handed. Um, so I think that's why Julks isn't there. And then for Joey Loperfido, I think the main thing for Joey Loperfido, sorry, is that they want him to have more consistent at bats because he's a prospect. If they bring him up and kind of just plug him into one at bat every 3 games, or that's something you give to John Singleton. You don't give that assignment to a prospect that can be really really good, that can stunt his growth a bit, if you will, for that metaphor. So that's why John Singleton is there, because that veteran presence. He's out of options. This is kind of John Singleton's last moment to show that he can produce on the Astros in the way that the Astros want him to, and if he can't, then they'll have to send him down, which means that the Astros can lose him. Now, I'm not saying that's out of the cards. I'm just saying that that's not what the Astros want. They invested into him. And if your team invested into a player, like, why are you hating on him so much? I don't understand podcasters and fans that are so angry and hateful. Sometimes I think, is it because he smoked marijuana? Like, is that, like, we're just hating on him because of his past? Like, I mean, that's really going to be a bad take after a while, because when things are being decriminalized, it's just like, dude, I think this guy just kind of got a bad rap, like, and on top of it, he really tried to change his life and turn things around to get back into baseball. Why are we being so critical of this man? We should be supporting him. We should be supporting him and hoping that he can turn it around, and hoping that he can get some hits so that he can make this roster and be a consistent contributor, and really help this team, because it would be better to have this left-handed at bat than to have Loperfido in the situation. We really want Loperfido to get consistent at bats and to bring him up in September, and then have him on the roster next season. That is a much better uh, course for Loperfido's career and developing the prospect. And Singleton can really fill this void and really provide a nice left-handed at bat that we need. Um, then anyway, so he had a. I'm getting off my soapbox and stop lecturing these podcasters and people with angry, hateful takes after one game. Calm down, you know. But we replaced Singleton. Obviously doesn't play center. We replaced Dubon. We replaced Singleton with Dubon, and Dubon later was 1 for 1. He got a nice little Dubon hit that he normally does, kind of just slapped one in the right field, got on base. Um, Dubon later got thrown out by Soto in the what would have been the tying run in the game, which, oh, it was such a heartbreaker, folks. If you weren't watching it, you definitely at that moment you thought the Astros could potentially at least tie the game, which would make which would have been great, but Dubon was just like a step behind. Um, the play got the tag at the home got reviewed. There just wasn't enough evidence to overturn it. It looked like potentially the tag didn't hit Dubon, but there just wasn't enough evidence. So the tag, the play called, the play, the play was out, and the play standed. Is what I'm trying to say, and yeah, it was just a tough loss, folks. But the Astros offense was 3 for 10 with runners in scoring position and left 9 on base. It wasn't. It just it wasn't the worst start to our offense, but we definitely need some people to start being a little more consistent. we want some bats to wake up. We don't want a slow start this season. Um, the Astros got to be really lucky during their reign here the last 7 years. Um, this season, we're not going to be so lucky. The Rangers are good. you know, it seems silly to say, but obviously the Rangers are good. I don't think they're great right now, but the Rangers obviously have the potential to be great, and if they are better than us at a time when it is when at the end of the season when it's more important, they can advance further than us. So, and then there's Seattle. Seattle's a good team too. So we cannot get started slow this season like we normally do. We have to get a much faster start to the season, which would mean that we need to have a better offensive start out of the gate. I'm looking at you, Alex Bregman. I'm looking at you, Jose Abreu. No, like it's tough. You know, you you have to adjust to get your spring started, and then you have to adjust to get your season started. So, I'm hoping that our Astros can get those adjustments made, and that we can have a much more consistent um, out output in our stat line here. I don't think, I do think there was a little bit of chasing out of the zone, but I think it's just minor tweaks to make to our offense right now, because that lineup looks scary. I'm definitely excited about where the Astros are going to go this season, but I'm more excited to see the Astros beat the Yankees tonight. So that's going to be it for today's podcast. Thanks so much for listening to Space Cadet Sports. You can find me on social media at Paul Salazar Jr. You can find my Substack at spacecadetsports.substack.com. And yeah, just wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe. Give me a good rating if you like it, and share it with people. That's definitely the way to help get this out there. And yeah, thanks for listening. And go Astros. Vamos, vamos, Astros.